your purpose is to be authentically you. Actually, number one regret of the dying is things that they did not do, not things they did do.
They tend to have this idea that they don't have choice, but even believing that you don't have choice is a choice. It's all choice at the end of the day, and the way that we come down to the choice is by the questions that we ask ourselves. So who are you now? Who do you desire to be? And what's important to you most?
It's a fallacy to try and please everyone in the room. Someone's gonna hate you because you have a hair out of place. Who cares? Your job there is to impact that one.
If you're only allowing love to come in one or two ways, then you're limiting the potentiality of love in all of the different forms and energetics. If you don't know you, you can't expect somebody else to know you. And if you can't articulate you, you can't expect the other person to actually love you the way that you need to be loved. You don't have to be for everybody. If you were for everybody, then you wouldn't be that remarkable.
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick. And with me today, a soul on a mission to serve. Master Practitioner in Neuro Linguistic Programming, otherwise shortened for NLP for those that know. Reiki Master, Trauma Support Specialist, and most importantly, mom of three. Please join me in welcoming Jaymie Gerena to the show. Welcome, Jaymie.
Hello, I am honored to be here. Thank you for having me, Josh. I appreciate it.
Well, so excited to have you. I've had a couple conversations with men in the past that have been more focused on the masculine energy and, you know, getting to know you through social media and stuff like that. I was really excited to have the opposite and more on the feminine energy side of things. So it's, I want to give my audience always, you know, all sides of the coin, because we're all trying to grow. And I know I have many different listeners, so in that diversity, but I want to give the audience a little bit of a preview as well. As Jaymie and I don't know each other well yet. We've got to know each other through Arte and through social media and just following each other. But one of the things I wanted to really point out and why I asked you to be on the show is because your first post that I saw was so vulnerable and authentic, and you've been through some major shit in your life. And at the same point, don't claim the victim. You claim the victor. And I just absolutely love that. So I wanted to start with that and just what I've observed of you and pay you that compliment, because I think it's one of those things on social media. There's too many people playing the victim card, and those that haven't even been through half the shit that you've been through in your life. So I wanted to pay you that compliment to start.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
So getting into things right away, in your opinion, what is the number one thing keeping women from getting unstuck and really fully embracing their leadership identity?
Gosh, that's a great question, because we can go in so many different avenues, but I would say lack of confidence and lack of belief. So they don't believe that they can gain the confidence to get unstuck. There's been so many stigmas that have been placed upon us. You've got to be a great wife. You got to be a great partner. You got to be a great mom. You've got to cook. You got to clean, and you have to work, and you've got to do all of these other things. So when you stack that on top of, let's say, quote unquote, a woman, and she is expected to show up in all of these different areas, it's almost like the sabotage, right? They're like, how can I do all of this and still have my own identity? So you lose confidence in the ideology that you have to show up as perfect in everything. So I would say that is probably one of the biggest issues that we're facing right now, is women trying to do everything, which then forces them into the masculine. And then they use the feminine essence that an alpha or a strong man is even attracted to.
That is interesting. So when you're working with people and doing some of your coaching programs, where do you start? Because I always want to give audiences like practical stuff, and not to give them the entire playbook, because I know that would take much longer. And I know that's also what you get paid to do, but also, well, I want to give some practical takeaways as to where would they start to get that belief or start to get unstuck in their life.
Yeah, I always touch back to values and identity. So who are you now? Who do you desire to be? And what's important to you most? Because so many people are starting things nowadays, but they're not understanding why, and they think that they have to. And so we have to get back into touch with what's important to us. What's our driver? What are our values, right? When it comes to context of career, relationship, family, personal development, health, right? When it comes to all of these different areas of life, there's actually different values that are drivers in each different area, which a lot of people didn't know. And so when we look at that, we have to understand, what is our operating system? What do I actually need at the root of the person that I am? And then we lean in there. Because what I've found is so many people are in different, let's say, career paths that are actually completely out of alignment to their values, but they're doing it because they want to be successful, but they're realizing that they're going against the grain. And sometimes going against resistance means that you're on the wrong path. And we've got to take a look at that and be open to the idea of, okay, what do you actually want? What do you actually desire out of your life? How can we lean in there?
Man, that is so good. And it actually takes me back to early on in my marriage, because I'm a few years older than my wife, and which she always likes to point out to people. But I was already pretty successful in my career when we met, and she was looking at going down the law school path. And we had to have a conversation about, and she took her LSATs and everything and was just on this path. And we had a conversation about, is that something that you truly want? Like, because I will support you either way, but just know, like, if you were doing that because that was early on in your life, or what was planted in your head to be successful or make money or do something outside of yourself, like, or outside pressures that were making you or making you feel like you needed to do that, just know that on the monetary side or professional side, like, we're going to be fine. Is raising a family to you more important? And we started having all this dialogue and questions about that. So it was great. And she ended up choosing not to go down that law school path, and is a wonderful mother, and now getting her master's in nutrition and choosing different things for her life that we were able to decide and discuss as a family. But for those women that, potentially don't have a supportive husband like me, or a single mother raising kids on their own and trying to fit this societal model, I can sense how difficult that would be.
Yeah, they tend to have this idea that they don't have choice, but even believing that you don't have choice is a choice.
Ooh, that's powerful.
That's going to sting a little.
Yeah, I was going to say that might hurt some people a little bit, but it's the truth, right? We always have a choice.
Exactly. It's all choice at the end of the day. And the way that we come down to the choice is by the questions that we ask ourselves. And so if you aren't happy, we've got to start asking more empowering questions. If you are constantly asking yourself, why am I here? Why am I stuck? Why isn't this working? You're only faced with limiting thoughts. You're only faced with limiting questions and limited answers. And so when you elevate and expand what that question could actually mean, and you take a step back and you're like, well, what do I actually want? That's still a question. How can I get what I want? Still a question. Mm-hmm. What else can I do? What else can I try? Those give you better questions to ask God, the universe, whatever your beliefs are. And by asking more elevating questions, you get more elevated results.
More elevated answers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You want better answers to your life, ask better questions, and continue to dig deeper, is what Jaymie is saying there, because oftentimes I've played this game with people that I've mentored or coached in the past, and I call it a game. And once they've done it with me at least once, they're like, I know what you're doing here, Josh. I'm like, all right, cool, play along. But asking why, like 5 layers deep. Why do you want that? Well, why is that important to you? And they, after they figure out, like, okay, but we're trying to get to the real, not your surface level answer. And so I think that's what you're saying there. And it's really cool to hear you say it. All right. So in that same vein, let's talk a little bit about boundaries, because I think everyone struggles with boundaries in life and business. So why are they so important, and why are they uniquely important for, say, female clientele?
Yeah, man. So this is actually something that I did earlier on in my relationship. We sat down, and I recommend this for a client relationship as well. So when it comes to any sort of communication with other people, there are boundaries that need to be had, correct? And so when I sat down with my partner, we were like, okay, we have to come up with an agreement in our relationship. Now, this agreement is based off of, what do we want for my own wants? What do I need? And what are my boundaries? And so when you can meet each other's wants, needs, and boundaries, you know what that other person's needs are in order to support them. Now, when we have boundaries in place for our clients, for our business, for even our relationships, for our parenting, it truly is just this way of saying, hey, this is how I need to show up for myself. And every time you cross this, it affects how I get to show up for me. So I can't allow you to cross it because I wouldn't even cross that for me. And so boundaries are the number one thing, because if you don't set it in place for yourself, nobody else will. If you don't draw that line in the sand for what you are willing and not willing to tolerate, they're going to cross that every time.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what most people don't understand is what is a boundary smasher's job? To smash boundaries. If that's who they are to their core, and people are going to test your boundaries. And if you don't hold that line, you're going to perpetually be in a cycle of allowing that person in that relationship to cross your boundaries.
But your boundaries are also, I call them subcategories per each of your values. And so when you're looking at your laundry list of boundaries, you've got to be able to connect that back to your values. Like, hey, the reason why this is a boundary is because it actually doesn't meet my value of loyalty. It doesn't meet my value of love. It doesn't meet my value of contribution. And so it actually all intertwines, and it's just extra steps in the process of defining your identity and the values of the type of person that you require in your life.
I love that correlation. Boundaries are a subset of your values. So first, identifying what your values are so that you can also identify where your boundaries are. That is so good. Let's stay here for a minute because we're in a world, especially people that are younger than us, that really don't know how to communicate well. They're raised on their phones. They're utilizing dating apps and everything to come across a potential mate, partner, spouse, whatever, however you want to frame it. Whereas I don't know exactly how old you are, but I'm guessing I'm older. I used to have to approach a beautiful woman in a bar and put myself out there, or some sort of function, and put myself out there verbally and potentially get shot down or potentially be accepted. And we had this gift of being able to communicate and understand and get to know each other through in-person dialogue, whereas now everything's done, via these apps. It's just a different world. Right. So thinking about boundaries and where you start, maybe in the dating world or whatever it may be, how quickly are you trying to teach people to set these boundaries as they're getting to know a potential partner in life?
Oh, truthfully, I'm setting the framework to my children right off the bat. If you don't know you, you can't expect somebody else to know you. And if you can't articulate you can't expect the other person to actually love you the way that you need to be loved in any category of life, whether that is your client relationship, your personal relationship, it doesn't matter, family, friendships, it is all the same in terms of what you need in order to feel fulfilled in an area of life. And so my children, we've already done value solicitations for my children. They know what's important to them. They know what they love and what they don't like. And it's so cute. I love this every single time whenever my kids set a boundary. They're like, hey, I didn't like how you said that to me. Can you reframe that? And they'll call me out and I'm like, oh, that's shit. Awesome. Okay, we're going there now. But this is the power of starting when they're young, but not everybody has had that gift. I didn't have that gift of being shared any of this in my childhood. I didn't talk a whole lot about my childhood or at all. But that's another story. But why I share that is because I want people to know that if you are a child who wasn't raised on knowing self, who wasn't raised on a mission or values or understanding of how to work through tough situations through communication, I guess the number one thing that I want to share with you is pick up a communication book. Like, there are so many resources out there that will teach you how to access intelligence through communication, how to have empathy, how to have understanding, how to even know what any of that is and how to utilize it in context. One of my favorite books is actually Nonviolent Communication. It's how to communicate without trying to be an asshole to the other person. I was raised an asshole. I wasn't raised to communicate well at all. And so picking up this book actually helped me understand why I communicate that way, or how I can meet the other person and not do like a jab, not give a jab when I'm just trying to have a conversation. And so there's lots of resources when it comes to communication, but that was probably one of the biggest helps that I've had.
What other couple books would you recommend for folks?
That is probably the main one that I would start with, but communication comes with practice was what I'd say. Number one, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable in communication and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, because you can read all of the books, but if you're not learning how to do it, if you're not actually practicing it, it's just an idea. It's just knowledge unused.
And that's great advice, Jaymie, because that goes for anything, whether it's sales, whether it's leadership, or any other thing. You can read all the books, but until you actually apply the lessons, until you actually have real world experience, it doesn't come to fruition in real life.
Yeah.
So
and even sales books. Sales books are an incredible way to start learning how to communicate, because if you want to be able to close a relationship, you got to know how to sell, whether that's selling yourself, whether that's selling yourself in the relationship, right? You have to know how to sell. It's all about closing. So if you can close a conversation and you can have a conversation, be open and loving and understanding and compassionate, that all comes hand in hand with communication. So communication, so I always start with like psychology, communication, lead into sales.
Yes, agreed. Been teaching sales for years, and it's unbelievable the amount of head trash that goes on in sales. And it's really because they're focused to A, they don't know who they are and the belief in what they're doing or selling. And then B, they're making it about them and not the person sitting across from them. Because if you're making it about the person sitting across from them, you wouldn't be in your own head. You'd be worried about what's going on in their head.
Exactly. How can I show up for you? How can I support you? What do you need most right now?
What do you think about love languages? Is that a good read for most to understand and how each other chooses to be loved, especially in a partner relationship type thing?
Yes and no. There have been relationships where I led super hard in that, but here's the truth. We all need them all. We just need them all at different times and different seasons. There's going to be days where you actually would like some encouragement, even if you're not a words guy, right? When you're having those hard days and you're like, what the hell am I doing? Those words would be nice, even if your number one was gifts, even if your number one was acts of service. Sometimes those things are nice. Now, people do have this operating system where they're like, well, I love getting gifts, right? But then when are the gifts enough? They're never enough. When are the words enough? It's never enough. So I actually believe that if you only let people love you in the way you believe you need to be loved, then you're missing the gifts of what they can actually give you.
Wow. That's a really powerful thought, because I know so many people that believe so strongly in that book. And then you're right, they form an identity around, well, this is how I like to be loved, or this is who I am, right? And so they frame that identity around that. And like you said, miss out on the gifts that those other love languages could provide them.
Yeah. Or even how I can love on somebody else through the love language that I actually provide. You know, it expands so much of your idea of love. If you're only allowing love to come in one or two ways, then you're limiting the potentiality of love in all of the different forms and energetics.
Oh, that's so good. All right. We got more to cover. So I want to switch gears here. That I could stay on that with you for a while. So you have different tiers to your business, and I'm sure all that came at different times through your entrepreneurial journey, just like stuff has come along my entrepreneurial journey at different times. I want to give a little bit to our entrepreneurs that are listening to this. Yeah. What indicators did you pay attention to, or did you receive that told you it was time to expand?
My community. Honestly, a lot of my expansion came from hard truths from friends that I wasn't ready to hear. And that was, okay, your program is crap. I've heard that. I'm like, okay, cool. How can I expand this? How can I make this better? How can I lean into making it not be crap when I first started? I first started with one-on-one, right? And this was at the point where I was just learning about personal development. I was overcoming my own traumas and tribulations in my life. And I was just voracious to learn and to expand and to grow. And so during this season, I was charging $197 a month for one-on-one coaching, and I coached for 4 hours a month. Talk about lack of confidence and unworthiness that was showing up in my life at the time, right? Now, in the beginning, I had no systems. It was just like hey, pop on a Zoom call and we'll figure it out, or call me. And so it's like, hey, the structure is crap. Like, you have to figure this out. And so that was one of my first aha moments. Like, okay, how can I make a beautiful onboarding process for my people to come in and go through an experience? I want time with me to be an experience that you've invested in, that you enjoy coming to. It's like having a sacred container, right?
Yeah.
A safe space, a safe haven. When you come into a space with me, I want you to feel the energetic of the desires you are trying to create in your life. So the number one thing is, maybe put out a poll to your current clients. What do you think could be improved? What do you think that I can shift? And have it be anonymous. You don't need to know who they are. You don't need to have all of the details of the person who thought blank about the program or about the service. But the point of all of this is to collect data. If you aren't collecting data, then you can't make the right decisions to move forward. You have to be making sure that every choice that you're making is based off of proof, cold hard proof that, okay, this is what needs to shift in order to progress in this area.
Oh, that's so good. So what I love about what you just said is you didn't just chalk them up to haters, right? That you didn't just say, oh, that person's hating on me, because it's so easy to do that. You took that as real data, as real feedback, and whether it was even 100% true or not, you took it as 100% true so that you could level up and make sure that you were delivering at a really high level and creating an experience, because the vast majority of your work is via Zoom, correct?
Yeah, via Zoom. And then we do have some in-person things as well.
Yeah. So I think that's really cool how you didn't just say, oh, that's just a hater. You took that as an opportunity to level up and create an experience via Zoom, which is hard to do. It's not the easiest thing to do because we are lacking that human to human interaction and emotional connection when we are in person together. That's why, I'm set up in a live studio and I'd love to have you out here sometime. We can do this in person, because then it's just a totally different vibe and energy. But then what we have to create in Zoom is this, like we're in person together, and figure out all the different ways that we can do that to create a special experience. But I really love the fact that you didn't take that as just hater nation, because so many people do that nowadays. And even if the hater was 99% incorrect, there's still some percentage that is correct about what they said about your program. So just like if we're in an argument, there's some percentage that I have to own as my fault, whatever percentage that is. We have to own, what part of the problem is me. And the longtime listeners have heard me say that question often, because it's one of those reflection questions. What part of the problem is me? How do I level up and make myself better to show up better for those that I'm serving? So really, really good.
Earlier on in my career, I heard this one phrase, this one quote, and this is what changed everything for me. And it said, check your ego to your bank account. Which one weighs more? And so I'm like, dang. Okay, cool. Yeah. So anything that anyone says to me, I'm going through this internal audit of, okay, where can this be true? If it's not cool, I'll chalk it up as a hater. And if there are parts that it struck a nerve in me, then I'm like, okay, that means there's validity here. Where is there validity? Then that means you got to break down all your systems and inspect and make sure the hard drives are good, make sure the soul set is good, the mindset is right? Making sure your body is fed, making sure that all of the green means go. Right.
Yeah.
And if you're good, then you're good. But if there's still something in there that they triggered, you're activated for a reason.
Yes. So good. It's like this overall systems check, just like the engine light in your car, or when they hook that little machine up to your car to make sure, are there any red flags that pop up in the system? That's how you're describing. That's great. So public speaking, not only something that you're very good at, but also that you truly enjoy it. Has that always been the case, or did you have to work on your confidence and self-belief and all the different things we spoke about earlier to get you to a point where you own the stage that you're on?
Yeah. Oh man. There's layers to this, because when I was young, I think I used to sing a lot. So singing was one of my main passions when I was younger. And so I loved to perform, but I was masked with this belief of being an introvert that wouldn't allow me to actually show up. And so it was the unlayering process of removing the limiting beliefs, the lack of confidence, the fears that were placed upon me in my childhood. And it took me a long time to allow myself to be visible, to be seen, to be heard. Growing up, how I was raised, it was very much know your place. If you want to do anything that requires you to be loud or yourself, go do it in your room where you are by yourself. Out of sight, out of mind, essentially know your place. And I found that my place kept me very introverted. It kept me very to myself. And I found peace and comfort being alone. And so now being in a space, in an arena where I know that my purpose and my passion is to show up for more people than just myself, I had to get uncomfortable in order to do my life's purpose, to serve in the capacity that I know I'm supposed to be serving in. Now, I know so many people believe that they have a bigger purpose and a bigger mission, but when you feel it, that's a different story. When you are feeling that activate within your soul and in your body, and you don't listen, you get sick, you get depressed, you get upset, you feel like you are dying in the inside out. And so for me, I hit that point in my life a couple of years ago where I was like, I can't live like this anymore. I can't live for my limitations. I would rather, there's some people who would rather die for their limitations than come to the truth of their soul's purpose. And so for me, I was like, I can't live like this anymore. I would rather be on the journey and never succeed than never try.
That's great. So let's dive into that introvert piece quick, because I'm also an introvert. I think a lot of people misunderstand what an introvert truly is, or what an extrovert truly is. And so I'll give you my definition or my understanding, and feel free to chime in on yours or expound on it. It's where we draw our energy. And so for me, if I'm in a public space, or if I have to give but get the opportunity to present or give a keynote, that takes a ton of energy from me. And that, in that respect, when I have to be focused in that nature and trying to engage a large group, whether that's a networking function or on stage, that draws almost all of my battery. And the way I recharge is to go be by myself for a bit. Yep. To go work out, to go be by myself, whatever. Whereas an extrovert actually draws energy from those situations. And that's been my understanding of the introvert extrovert. Whereas most people, I feel like, really think that extroverts are just really talkative people and introverts are not so talkative people. Whereas actually some of the best singers on the planet, some of the best performers on the planet, some of the best salespeople on the planet are introverts, because they really connect with people. But give me your take as well.
No, it's exactly that. I was raised with this belief that being an introvert means you didn't like people. I lived my whole life like gaslighting myself, because I was like, well, I love people, but apparently I don't like people, because I don't really find a ton of joy giving and just speaking in front of a lot of people. So I created this belief and this association to being an extrovert means that you love people, and being an introvert means that you don't love people. And so I went on the journey of realizing that people are everything to me. My connections and my relationships and my network is everything to me. And I love pouring in, but it's very much that when I pour in, I need to refuel back up. And I require a lot of alone time in order to refuel back up, because I'm constantly pouring as a mama, as a partner, as a business owner, as a chef, as a cleaner, right? I'm pouring constantly. And so I do require a lot of time to refuel back up. But this is why I love biohacking. This is why I love doing red light therapy and making sure that I do fasting to give my body the time that it needs to recover, because it's constantly working. So just remembering that it needs a break too, to house the spirit, which is you.
Yeah. And our body's always storing those traumas as well. So we got to continue checking in over time. I think, honestly, told you a little bit about my illness. I think my body shut me down on purpose. Like it needed a break, and it forced me to listen. And so I had to drop out of 75 hard, which, hey, we got to compliment Jaymie for not only completing 75 hard, but getting used to the cold showers in phase 1 right now, right?
Oh, I'm not having a good time. I have 6 days left and then I am done.
It's interesting, Jaymie. I don't know if you'll get to this point, because I know you've been vocal about hating the cold showers. I still do them to this day after doing the Live Hard program last year. It's like you said, biohacking. So I do cold plunges as well as the showers. But if I don't cold plunge on a daily, I'm always cold showering on the daily. So it's just one of those things now where I know for my immunity, my cellular level stuff, like it just is good for me. So I just force myself to do it, whether I hate it or not.
Yeah, I don't love them, but I have noticed a lot of improvement in my nervous system. And so due to the years of trauma that I've dealt with in my childhood, I've carried this irregular nervous system. And so there will be moments where it'll just randomly spike out of nowhere for no reason. And I found that by doing the cold showers, it's created this association to this almost mental toughness and calming of the nervous system responses, to where I had a really good grip on it, but there would still be moments where it didn't make any sense. And so now even that's regulated. I would get like these random little shakes and I'm like, well, what is happening in my body? But since doing the cold showers, I haven't noticed any of it, which is incredible.
See, soon enough, you're going to buy a cold plunge or a tank that you can just dip in, and you're going to be going like 10 minutes strong. You're like, remember that person that hated cold showers?
Oh man, I'm not willing to release that belief yet.
All right, real quick back on the public speaking piece, because again, I want to give a practical takeaway. Was there anything that you did or anything that you would give as a piece of advice to say someone else that sees themselves as an introvert, but also sees themselves as having a greater purpose and wanting to give to people on this planet? What advice would you have for that person?
Honestly, here's the number one thing. As an introvert, we're like the weird ones, right? We are so weird in a quiet room with the ones that we love and we feel comfortable about. We can get all funky and we can get all strange, and they're like, you're so weird. But
Goofy,
you're an introvert.
even. Yeah, I get called goofy.
Yeah, you're just funny. You're goofy. You have a good time. So if you can feel comfortable doing that around people that you feel safe and that you trust and that trust you, allow yourself to expand on the belief that you can do it in a room full of people too. And so the number one thing here is using that belief and that remembrance and bringing it into how you show up for other people too. So many people step into the speaker position and they are sitting there thinking about, well, what do these people think of me? Am I going to botch the speech? Am I going to mess up? Am I going to say the wrong thing? You're doing it wrong. That's when you know that you're doing it wrong. Your ability to be on the stage only got there because of your presence, because of your ability to capture a room. And so you forget that when you go on stage and you start thinking about yourself. You have to be willing to think about the people's lives that will change because of what you share. And then just go into the space of delivering, go into the space of giving. When you make it about you, you actually block your blessings. But when you make it about other people, that's when the energy of the room just becomes so overpowering and so beautiful that you become remembered for that. Yes,
100% agree. And the only thing I would add to it is don't try and please the entire audience. Try and please one. Try and give your gifts to one. Like you're going to impact one person in a room of 20 or 200 or 2,000. Does not matter. reach that one. Don't try, because you're not going to, it's a fallacy to try and please everyone in the room. Someone's going to hate you because you have a hair out of place. Who cares? Your job there is to impact that one.
Yeah, it's all about being true to you. You can't do it to please them. You have to be true to you in your messaging and how you portray the message. And then that is what is going to magnetize your people to you. I always tell my clients, listen, I'm not for everybody. On every sales call I've ever done, I am not for everybody. I'm going to say it how it is a lot of the time, and you're not going to like it. And that's okay. If we are not here to do this together, I'm good with referring you out. That is the number one thing. You don't have to be for everybody. If you were for everybody, then you wouldn't be that remarkable.
Yes. Write that down, everybody. You're not for everybody. Think about it. Go back to just any election, whether it's presidential or otherwise. There's 50% of the country that absolutely loathes this person. Probably 20 to 30% that are team that person, like they're going to go, and the other 20% just voted for that person because they didn't like the other person as much. So by and large, you need to be actually not liked more than you are liked, because the people that do like you and do love you and do support your message and do connect with you, those are your people.
They will ride for you.
Yeah.
There have been some times where I have had haters and I haven't even had to make a single comment because I've got my people in there already on it. I'm like,
yep.
That's what it's about. Like sometimes you don't even need to fight the battles because you are so divinely supported. It's incredible.
Yeah. You're like, squad, circle up.
Hey, run it up.
That's great. All right. So back to your most important job as a mother of three, and also a woman that's overcome extreme adversity to get to where you are today. And I didn't ask Jaymie to get into all the stuff that she's had to overcome in her life, but what message do you have for young aspiring women to achieve great heights that, just seem a little out of reach to them today?
Yeah, this is a loaded question. And the only reason why is because you just have to really get clear on what you want. There are going to be so many people in your life that try to dim your light just to keep you safe. But safety is dangerous. It's not safe. If you allow yourself to play safe your entire life, you're going to miss the point of living. You're going to be living based off of existing, but is that truly living? If you're not willing to take risks for your desires, then you're just living life how somebody else wants you to live, which isn't how you want to live. So you've got to get so freaking radically clear and take radical responsibility on what it is you want to create out of this life and work like hell to get it. Work like hell to build up these areas that you lack and to bring in the right people into your corner to support you in the deficits, right? Because I'm not perfect. I'm sure you're not perfect. None of us are perfect,
no.
But we've got amazing people that are really good at what we are not good at. And so I don't want to know everything. I just want to get really good at what I'm really good at and continue to inspire and bring in the right people to support me in the areas that I'm not. So you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be willing to be unperfect and keep doing it anyway.
Yes. So good. So good. Yeah, there's so much there. I hope everyone got from that, because there is no perfect. Like you said, you don't think I'm not perfect by any means, and neither are you, and neither is anyone else. So that's the biggest thing people need to get past at first, is to make sure that they are them and they're uniquely them. And you're a 1 in 400 trillion chance even to be on this planet, where we are right now. God divinely made you, and your purpose is to be authentically you. Actually, number one regret of the dying is things that they did not do, not things they did do. Mm-hmm. So that speaks directly to your point. All right. And so for women that feel they've hit rock bottom, and I know you've had some major traumas in your life. So when you hit rock bottom, you feel like there's no way out, or no way up, no way they can pick themselves back up. Where do they start?
Well, you can't go any lower. So there is a way up. For me, I was met as a single mom with 2 daughters at this point in my life. And I remember sitting on the floor of my apartment. The boxes were lined up against the wall. And I was in this place where I was like, God, universe, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have nothing left inside of me. I don't know if I even want to be here anymore. That was one of the first times I've ever contemplated suicide, but I couldn't do it because of my children. And I didn't want to leave them behind because I knew that I had them for a reason. Both of them came after two really big passings in my life. And so I knew that they were there with such divine intention that I was like, I can't be selfish and take myself out. And I remember sitting there and I got this reminder, this insane download. It honestly felt audible. Like I was at home by myself, but it felt like I heard somebody say this to me. It was such a sound truth that pierced my soul that I was like, you can't deny this voice. And it said, if you can't find the light, you have to be the light. And so I did what I did best, and that was get my ass up and get to work. And I remember going to Google and I searched how to be happy. And it was flooded with blogs, articles, resources, videos. And I stumbled across Tony Robbins. And I found one of these videos that he was talking about with a man, and it was an intervention, and this man was suicidal. And he was having this conversation. And the biggest takeaway that I took was life is happening for you, not to you. And every association that you had in life, everything that happened in your life was to build your character. But now you get to decide what character you'd like to create, because life is about creating. It's not about learning. It's not about becoming. It's about remembering, and it's about creating what you want out of life. And the only way you get to create is if you undo what other people have placed upon you. And so in your darkest moments are just a time that you get to witness for yourself on how you got out of it. It's not how you got in it. It's how you're going to get out of it that defines the type of person that you are.
Oh, that's so good. Was it the red shoes guy?
That was one of them, but he has so many other interventions if you look him up on YouTube.
Yeah, Tony's the master. I just heard the red shoes one is famous.
The red shoes.
He's
like, wait,
the
what?
red shoes. It's the fucking red. So good. All right. Man, that was so good, Jaymie. I just have like one more question, I think, that I want to wrap up as our time's good. This has flown by. It's been so good. And I didn't prep you for this question, so we'll see where you go. And by the way, this is not necessarily a PC show, so wherever you go with this, go with it. I had someone hold back the other day. I'm like, no, don't do that. So what's an unpopular belief that you hold to be true that most others would disagree with?
That you can create whatever life you want to. You just have to get out of your own way to do it. Because I was that person that truly believed that I could never amount to anything. I believed that I was going to be on government assistance like my family. I believed that I was going to be poor. I believed that I was going to be a victim my entire life. I've beat every fucking odd against me. I was a high school dropout. I was mentally, physically, and sexually abused starting at the age of 2 years old up until I was 13. Oh. So when you think of every single odd that had been placed upon me, including being born a drug baby, there's no way that I'd be here today had I let those thoughts win. So you can truly create whatever life you want to if you're willing to get out of your own way and if you're willing to put in the work. But it requires work. And it requires tenacity, and it requires resiliency. And there's going to be a lot of those moments where you're going to curl up on the ground and think that you can't do it, but it's how you get yourself up at the end of the day that is going to keep you moving forward. You have to keep moving forward no matter what.
So good. And everybody, she just hit on it so briefly there, some of the traumas that she went through that are unspeakable, unimaginable, that no child should have to go through. And that's not even counting some of the adult trauma she's stored as well to overcome. So it's like one of those things where if she can say after all of that shit, because it truly was shit that happened to you, that life happened for you and not to you, whoever's listening to this, so can you. So just trust Jaymie in that. Don't even take my words, take Jaymie's words, please. Trust that it happened for you, all these different things, so that you can be the light for others that Jaymie is for others. Jaymie, thank you so much for pouring into my audience today. It was so good. You're such a beautiful light. I am definitely going to refer to you because there's definitely women in my network that I am not the right coach for. And there may be even some men too, who knows? But bottom line is, like, you have such a beautiful spirit and you're actually doing some great work out there and coaching and helping people. So I just want to give you that compliment.
Thank you. I really value that. And that means a lot to me. Thank you for that.
All right, Spartans, you know what I'm going to say. Remember that good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.